Case 6. Sarah Johnson. A sheriff stopped a garbage truck before it left the street, and that single decision preserved the evidence that would convict a 16-year-old. On the 2nd of September, 2003, in Bellevue, Idaho, Alan Johnson, aged 46, and Diane Johnson, aged 52, died from gunshot injuries inside their home. Their 16-year-old daughter, Sarah Marie Johnson, was present in the house at the time. She told investigators she had been asleep, was woken by gunshots, discovered her parents, and ran to a neighbor's home for help, describing an unidentified intruder as responsible. Blaine County Sheriff Walt Femling secured the scene quickly and made one particularly consequential call early on. He stopped a garbage truck that had just completed its collection route on the family street. Inside that truck was physical evidence that would become central to the case: a pink bathrobe, a leather glove, and a latex glove. Forensic testing on those items reshaped the entire direction of the investigation. Laboratory analysis found blood evidence on the bathrobe and determined it had apparently been worn inside out. The pockets contained ammunition consistent with the weapon used, and the leather glove tested positive for gunshot residue. Investigators located a matching leather glove inside Sarah Johnson's own bedroom. Most significantly, DNA testing identified genetic material matching Sarah Johnson on the discarded latex glove and on the bathrobe itself, which also carried DNA from both of her parents. Investigators further matched dried paint residue found on the robe to paint residue found on a shirt Sarah had been wearing. The weapon was identified as a rifle belonging to a tenant who rented the family's guest house, a structure Sarah had regular access to, and it had been left behind at the scene. Investigators also documented a family conflict in the background of this case. Sarah's parents had disapproved of her relationship with an older man, and that disagreement had escalated noticeably in the days leading up to the deaths. Sarah was questioned repeatedly and consistently denied any involvement. It was only after the DNA results were returned that she was arrested and formally charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Her trial began in early 2005. The defense argued that an unidentified intruder was the true perpetrator, and presented expert testimony contending that whoever fired the weapon at close range would have shown far more blood evidence than was found on Sarah or on the clothing she was wearing when she was discovered by the neighbor. The defense also pointed to unidentified fingerprints recovered from the weapon itself, arguing this raised reasonable doubt. On the 16th of March 2005, an Ada County jury convicted Sarah Johnson on both counts. She was sentenced to 2 fixed life terms without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 15 years for a firearm enhancement.
Mom and Dad treated you like a princess. I don't know why you threw it away. Of all the things I miss their hugs. Their bear hugs. And Judge, I would like to see the maximum, because after tomorrow when you read your sentencing, I don't want to ever have to hear about her or this event ever again.
The Idaho Supreme Court upheld her conviction in 2008. Since then, multiple post-conviction efforts have been filed and denied, including a claim of ineffective counsel and the unresolved fingerprint issue, a motion filed in 2014, further appeals in 2017, and arguments citing later United States Supreme Court rulings on juvenile sentencing. Sarah Johnson remains incarcerated to this day. This case is frequently studied for one specific investigative lesson. The decision to physically stop a departing garbage truck, made within hours of the 911 call, preserved forensic evidence that would otherwise have been lost permanently at a waste facility. Without that decision, this case may never have been solved. Case 7.
I mean, the only thing that I know is just that, I left the house later than what I had said.
Jimmy.
Did you leave the house with your brother Cody looking like that? Or did you leave the house with your father looking like that? Or your mother? Is that how you left your family?
No.
Who left your family like this? If you were the one that's been depressed, you were the one that owes money, you were the one that got into a confrontation with your father, who did this to your family?
Grant Amato. 3 people were found dead in one home, staged to look like a murder-suicide. Gunshot residue testing proved that staging was false within days. On the 24th of January 2019, in Chuluota, Florida, in Seminole County, 3 members of the Amato family died from gunshot injuries inside their home. Chad Amato, aged 59, his wife Margaret Amato, aged 61, and their son, Cody Amato, aged 31. Their other son, Grant Amato, a former nurse then aged 29, was later charged with all 3 deaths. The bodies were discovered on the morning of the 25th of January, 2019, after Cody Amato failed to show up for his nursing shift, and concerned co-workers requested a welfare check. Deputies found the home locked from the inside, with no signs of forced entry. Investigators immediately noted that the scene appeared arranged to resemble a murder-suicide, with a weapon deliberately positioned near Cody's body.
One victim is in the general area of the garage. One victim is in the kitchen area, and I'm not sure the exact. Oh, and then another victim is in like what appears to be the family office.
Forensic testing quickly dismantled that staged narrative. Gunshot residue testing did not support the theory that Cody had fired any weapon himself. The angles of the injuries and the positioning of evidence throughout the scene were inconsistent with the story the scene appeared designed to tell. A firearms expert with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement testified that the ammunition recovered near the bodies had not, in fact, been fired from either of the weapons found inside the house. The actual weapon used was never recovered. The evidence that ultimately solved this case was digital. A digital forensics investigator with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office, Geraldine Blay, reconstructed a minute-by-minute timeline pulled directly from the family's devices. That reconstruction revealed that Grant Amato had developed an obsessive relationship with an online webcam performer and had taken approximately $200,000 from his own family to sustain it, roughly $150,000 from his father, Chad, including a loan taken out against the family home, and approximately $60,000, along with firearms, from his brother Cody, all funneled to the performer over a period of roughly 3 months. When the family confronted him and moved to cut off both the money and the relationship, the conflict escalated sharply. Investigators established that at approximately 11:40 in the evening on the 24th of January, Cody Amato's phone had been connected directly to Grant Amato's computer, which prosecutors argued was an attempt to erase data from the device after Cody was already dead. A thumb drive connected to Grant's computer that same night contained more than 600 photographs and videos related to the webcam performer.
Right, Sylvia. Look at me. I am outside going to check the mail. And I'm asking you if you can please, pretty please, send me one of your videos. I love it so much when you just send them to me. Yeah, I don't like buying your stuff. It makes me feel weird. Could you please send me one though?
Investigators further demonstrated that Grant attempted to re-establish contact with her using public wireless internet at a nearby grocery store shortly after the deaths occurred. Prosecutors summarized the case for the jury by pointing out 3 things missing from the home entirely: Cody's phone, the murder weapon, and Grant Amato himself. Grant Amato's trial took place in July and August of 2019. His defense argued there was no direct physical evidence tying him to the scene, and presented his compulsive online behavior as a mitigating factor for the jury to consider. On the 1st of August, 2019, after more than 8 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted him on 3 counts of first-degree murder.
Verdict, count 1, Margaret Amato. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Verdict, count 2, Chad Amato. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Verdict, count 3, Cody Amato. Guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Say we all signed 4-person dated July 31st, 2019.
Now,
During the penalty phase, jurors declined to recommend a death sentence. Grant Amato was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The court is limited to 1 finding and 1 sentence for you. As to each count, the court would adjudicate you guilty. I would sentence you to life imprisonment without any possibility of parole as to each count. I further would indicate that you are to be released to the Department of Corrections as soon as feasibly possible. And otherwise, sir, just God have mercy on your soul.
A Florida appellate court has since affirmed the conviction in full. This case is a clear example of how financial records and digital device forensics, rather than any single piece of physical evidence at the scene, can dismantle a staged crime scene and establish both motive and opportunity beyond reasonable doubt. Case 8. Melanie Maguire.
This is Melanie Maguire, arrested today minutes after dropping off her children at daycare.
Melanie Maguire.
3 suitcases surfaced in the water near a bridge tunnel in Virginia. What was inside would eventually be traced back to a nurse in New Jersey. On the 28th of April 2004, 39-year-old William Bill Maguire, a computer program analyst and Navy veteran, was last seen the evening after he and his wife closed on the purchase of a new home. He made several phone calls that night, then he was gone. His wife, Melanie Maguire, a nurse, would later be convicted in connection with his death. This case began, unusually, as an unidentified remains investigation in an entirely different state. Between the 5th and the 16th of May, 2004, 3 matching suitcases containing human remains were recovered from the waters near the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel in Virginia. Fingerprint analysis did not immediately produce an identification, so a forensic artist created a facial sketch that was released publicly. On the 21st of May 2004, the remains were formally identified as those of Bill Maguire. From there, forensic work began linking the case directly back to New Jersey. A blanket recovered with the remains bore the initials HCSC, the mark of a linen supply company that, according to the New Jersey Appellate Division's written opinion in State v. Maguire, served roughly 100 hospitals and medical offices throughout New Jersey. An account representative for that company testified that the specific medical practice in Morristown where Melanie Maguire worked had been a client since 2001. Investigators also recovered small cut hairs on adhesive tape used in the wrapping of the remains, which prosecutors argued indicated where the preparation had taken place. Forensic testing on tiny tissue fragments recovered from Bill Maguire's abandoned vehicle, later found at an Atlantic City motel, confirmed they belonged to the victim. Digital evidence became central to establishing intent. Investigators recovered a series of internet searches from a computer linked to Melanie Maguire, including searches related to firearms, sedatives, poisons, and methods of causing death, along with searches for specific medications. Investigators also established that she had purchased a handgun in Pennsylvania on the 26th of April 2004, just 2 days before her husband's disappearance, though that weapon was never recovered. Toll records further indicated a drive toward Atlantic City, matching the location where the victim's vehicle was eventually found. And investigators discovered she had attempted to have those specific toll charges removed from her account. Prosecutors also presented evidence of a forged prescription for a sedative, and evidence of an ongoing relationship with a physician at the fertility clinic where she was employed.
Do you know a woman named Melanie Maguire?
Yes, I do.
And, sir, where did you meet her?
At RMA, we worked together at the Morristown office.
Did there come a time when your relationship with Miss Maguire got more intimate?
Yes, it did. It was towards the end of her second pregnancy. She was about 38 weeks pregnant. We had oral sex in the office.
The remains confirmed the victim had died from gunshot injuries. The investigation formally moved from Virginia to New Jersey in October of 2004. Melanie Maguire was arrested in June of 2005. Her trial began in March of 2007 at the Middlesex County Courthouse in New Brunswick. The case against her was built almost entirely on circumstantial evidence. No weapon and no primary crime scene were ever recovered. On the 23rd of April 2007, the jury found her guilty of first-degree murder, along with desecration of human remains, perjury, and possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose.
All right, Mr. Foreperson, has the jury reached a verdict in this case? Yes, sir. Please stand. Has the jury reached a verdict in this case?
Yes, Your Honor.
And is the verdict unanimous as to each count?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to ask you then to follow along with the clerk of the court as she asks you to report the verdict, and at the appropriate time, please announce the jury's verdict.
Mr. Foreman, how do you find as to the count of the indictment charging possession of a firearm for an unlawful purpose between or about April 26, 2004 and on or about May 5, 2004 in the Township of Woodbridge, Middlesex County, New Jersey, elsewhere and within the jurisdiction of this court?
Guilty.
How do you find as to the count of the indictment charging Melanie Maguire with the murder of William Maguire between on or about April 28, 2004 and on or about May 5, 2004 in the Township of Woodbridge, Middlesex County, New Jersey, elsewhere and within the jurisdiction of this court?
Guilty.
How do you find as to the count of the indictment charging Melanie Maguire with desecrating human remains between on or about April 28, 2004 and on or about May 5, 2004 in the Township of Woodbridge, Middlesex County, New Jersey, elsewhere and within the jurisdiction of this court?
Guilty.
How do you find as to the count of the indictment charging Melanie Maguire with perjury on or about April 30, 2004 in the city of New Brunswick, Middlesex County, New Jersey?
Guilty.
On the 19th of July 2007, she was sentenced to life in prison plus an additional 5 years.
Does the defendant wish to make a statement before a sentence is imposed?
No, Your Honor.
In this case, the crime was so heinous, so cruel, and so depraved that the court finds that the maximum sentence should be imposed. And so as to count one of the indictment charging the murder of William Maguire, the defendant is committed to the custody of the Department of Corrections to serve a term of life imprisonment, and the defendant must serve 85% of the maximum term before being eligible for parole.
An appeals court affirmed her conviction on the 16th of March 2011, and the New Jersey Supreme Court declined to hear any further appeal. Later petitions for post-conviction relief have also been denied. She will not be eligible for parole for decades.
For 12 and a half, going on 13 years now.
Do you still insist that you're innocent?
Absolutely.
This case demonstrates how a body of purely circumstantial evidence, internet search history, financial records, toll data, and a single manufacturer's mark on a blanket can be assembled across state lines into a conviction, even when no weapon and no crime scene are ever physically located. 8 houses, 8 states, 1 pattern. In every one of these cases, it wasn't a single dramatic breakthrough that solved things. It was patient, methodical work. A fitness tracker, a neighbor's camera, a locked phone, a garbage truck stopped just in time, internet protocol addresses, DNA on a discarded glove, financial records, cell phone timelines, piece by piece, investigators built the truth out of evidence the people involved could not control. We've presented these cases exactly as they appear in court records, appellate rulings, and established reporting. And where a case is still active, like Peterson's ongoing appeals or Murdaugh's ordered retrial, we've said so clearly because the presumption of innocence still applies. That's it for this deep dive. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit like, drop a comment telling us which case stood out to you most, and subscribe to Truth to Bear Crime Stories so you don't miss the next investigation. We'll see you in the next one.